Hi, I'm Jen from Tea Leaves and Tweed, and here I talk about all things tea. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, be sure to subscribe to follow more of what I do. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. It's time for another Drinking with Jen. So this week I'm going to be sharing a tasting of 2 local whiskeys. So a little while ago, I mentioned that I bought 2 half bottles of whiskey from a local distillery, one that is made from rye and one that is made from spelt. And both of them are made from grains that are actually grown in Maryland and then distilled in Maryland. So this is a very local product. It has a lot of history behind it. I highly recommend following Michael Twitty, the cooking gene. He had a brilliant conversation with a Baltimore-based chef about how Maryland-grown grain was instrumental in feeding Europe during the late 18th century. So given the amount of history behind Maryland grain and given my love of whiskey, I thought I just had to try these 2 whiskeys. I know that I love rye whiskey, and the spelt whiskey just sounded so interesting. And in fact, the grain comes from the same farm where I get my flour to make bread. So the grains are from Migrash Farms, which is in Maryland, and they deliver flour to my local farmer's market, which I get to make my bread. So now I can have whiskey made from it. So today I'm going to be trying their Maryland rye whiskey and their ancient grain spelt whiskey. These are from Sang Froid Distillery. Sang Froid means cold blood, which is like being unfussed or imperturbed. So maybe after a couple of whiskeys, I will be much more chill and have that same sang froid. So let's get started. So instead of a brewing setup today, I have my tasting setup. I have 2 whiskey tasting glasses that I got at Cardew Distillery when my spouse and I visited Scotland for our honeymoon. So we each got 1 commemorative glass after our distillery tour and tasting. So this is perfect for tasting these 2 whiskeys. The whiskey actually comes with a wax seal. I've already opened the rye. It has these really cute kind of chunky wooden topped corks. And these kind of, I love this like apothecary style bottle. So we'll pour out a little bit of the rye. I don't usually drink 2 whiskeys during the day, so we'll make them a little short. And then I'll have to go and cut the wax off this spelt whiskey. So now we can open our spelt whiskey. And oh, I can already smell them both. So the only other thing I have for my tasting is I do have a mug of water. Traditionally, you're supposed to use the water from the region where the whiskey is made. So I suppose Maryland filtered tap water is actually appropriate to mix with our whiskey, but we'll start with them neat. So I'm going to start with the spelt whiskey because it's supposed to be a lighter flavor. It's got a very classic kind of whiskey nose to it. I almost get olives from certain types of whiskey, the ones that I like. It's almost got a floralness to it. Or maybe like apricot fruitiness. I feel like apricots and other stone fruits sometimes smell very floral. Oh, it's very smooth. It's extremely smooth, almost buttery, but it has this like kind of lubricating quality to it where it doesn't, like, you can feel that bite of the alcohol, but it doesn't like burn on the way down like some whiskeys do. It's just very gentle and smooth. I taste fruit and honey and a little bit of floral. Maybe like almost like a white floral, almost jasmine-y. I'm gonna try adding just a little bit of water. I have 1/8 of a teaspoon. Just like 2 or 3 drops of water. That brings out the fruitiness. That brings it almost like a bright, acidic quality. I can't quite put my finger on what fruit that is. It's so familiar. It's like maybe it's like a nectarine. Like a nectarine, not quite a peach, not quite an apricot. It's not orangey, but it's definitely more acidic than a peach. I think it's a nectarine. That is delicious. So now we're gonna try the rye whiskey. I think first I'll take a sip of water to cleanse my palate. So first, let's look at them side by side. They're actually very similar in color. I'm not seeing much difference in color at all. I feel like in the bottle, the Spelt whiskey looks a little bit lighter in color. And that makes sense mostly because the Spelt is only aged for 8 months in oak and the rye has been aged for a full year. So we'll try this neat rye whiskey. Has a thicker nose to it. It's woody, which makes sense, almost creamy. It's got that slight vanilla-y thing that things that are aged in oak have. Oh, this is much more peppery. You get spices, but you also get some sweeter spices like maybe nutmeg. It's definitely a little stronger tasting. It's got a little bit more of that burn. It's not quite as smooth going down, but it's still very, it's not as soft as the Spelt whiskey. It's still very smooth. It's still got that kind of lubricating, almost buttery or creamy. This one more, I think, tastes actually buttery. I do remember the first time I tasted this, I got buttered popcorn from it. I felt like you could taste the grain. And that makes sense because the grains from Migrash Farm are just so beautiful and flavorful. We'll try this one with a little water. Oh, the water just brings out this like sweet, buttery, like baked good flavor to it. It's this brioche flavor. It tones down that burning quality a little bit. It tones down the spice a little bit. I do love a good rye whiskey. Now, because this is a tea channel, it wouldn't be a video if it didn't have some connection to tea. So I am gonna try putting one of these whiskeys in a tea. And this morning, I think I'm just going to add a little tea to the second steeping of the tea that I've just been drinking this morning. So let's brew. So this is my second steeping of the Aberdairy's Gold black tea from Leafberry. This is a Kenyan black tea. I believe it is actually processed from Assamica leaves. So it has a very classic kind of British standard black tea flavor to it, but it's just very well done. And I've talked about this on Instagram before. I love this tea, and I feel like the kind of round notes of raisin and dried fruit that I get from this tea are kind of perfect to go with a really nice peppery whiskey, almost like a fruitcake in a mug. So let's brew this tea. I've already steeped this once. This is 3 grams of tea steeped in 250 milliliters of water for 3 minutes. So for the second steeping, I'm gonna add more boiling water and steep it for 4 minutes. So now it's been about 4 minutes. It's beautiful tea. It's almost the same color as the whiskey. It smells beautifully malty and a little bit raisiny, and I'm gonna add just a little splash, a wee nip of our Maryland rye whiskey. And let's give it a taste. Oh, the tea and the whiskey kind of blend together in the aroma. Oh, I could definitely have added a little bit more whiskey, but I can tell that it's just bringing this beautiful sweet warmth to the tea. I almost get the whiskey retronasally as I inhale the steam from the tea. I'm so tempted to add a little bit more, but I really shouldn't. Because as I said before, hot liquids with hard alcohol in them tend to affect me a little bit more strongly. Of course, our lawn service has gotten here, so if you hear any background noise, that's what that is, but it is necessary. So we will soldier on with our little whiskey hot tea. Yeah, this Aberdeen's Gold and Rye whiskey is excellent. Perfect for the little bit of fall weather that we're starting to get finally. It's actually getting a little chilly in the evenings and a little chilly in the mornings. So waking up with a little mug of black tea and rye whiskey just warms you up a bit. So this has been a tasting of the rye and spelt whiskeys from Froid Distillery in Hyattsville, Maryland. If you're interested in trying these whiskeys yourself and you live in the DC area, they will deliver to certain parts of Maryland. And of course, you can always go and pick them up at their distillery in Hyattsville. So definitely give these a try. They're very worth it. The whiskeys are about $35 for a 375 milliliter bottle each, or I got both of them in a set for $65 for the 2 of them, so a little price break there. So give those a try if you're interested. Thank you for joining me for this whiskey tasting and whiskey and tea tasting. I'm so glad to be back to my YouTube channel. I hope you are glad to have me back as well. And I hope I see you again sometime. Bye.